Okay. Good morning. Bonjour, Tanzi. I'm Independent Senator Marilou McPhedran, and I come from Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, Manitoba. I'm very honored to have with me today young Rohingya women advocates who are able to report in very personal terms about the ongoing genocidal violence against Rohingya in many parts of the world. Joining me today on my left is Yasma Ullah, RMCN member, and Noor Aziza. Yasmin is from Canada, Noor is from Australia, and the RMCN is a vibrant and dedicated network of young Rohingya women committed to tackling urgent human rights and humanitarian concerns affecting the Rohingya people, amplifying the voices and agency of Rohingya women who have been enduring mass atrocities, including genocide and conflict-related sexual violence. The RMCN mission is to effect change in the Rohingya homeland of Rakhine in a democratic Myanmar, and to ensure respect for Rohingya displaced and refugees wherever they may be. The RMCN calls upon the Government of Canada urgently to support the Rohingya directly in this moment of extreme need, and we will hear much more of that from our speakers today. And in addition to Yasmin and Noor, I'm very honored to have with us experts from Inter Pares, Sam McGavin, and also from the University of Ottawa Law, Professor John Packer. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Yasmin to speak with you. Yasmin.
Thank you so much for joining us today to address the urgent escalating crisis facing the Rohingya community in Arakan or Rakhine State, Burma, Myanmar. My name is Yasmin Ullah, and I am a Rohingya Canadian human rights activist currently serving as the executive director of the Rohingya Mayaforno Collaborative Network. I was born in Arakan State, Myanmar, during the height of the violence against Rohingya in the 1990s. Seeing no way out, my parents decided to flee from the country in 1995. We were displaced in Thailand without legal status or protection for 16 years before a group of kind Canadians stepped up to help us through a sponsored resettlement process. 14 years later, I am now one of the very few fortunate Rohingya who live in relative peace. Unfortunately, only 1% of the Rohingya out of 1.8 million people worldwide are currently living in freedom. Since May of this year, we have witnessed a horrifying escalation of violence against Rohingya people. Drone attacks, airstrikes, and the systematic burning of homes by both the Arakan army and the military junta have left approximately 95% of the Rohingya community displaced internally. This brutal campaign not only resulted in widespread suffering, but has also led to forced conscription of thousands of Rohingya men and boys, who are coerced into becoming frontline fighters in a conflict that seeks to erase their very existence. One harrowing account of a Rohingya man captures the despair. Quote, "They use us as frontline fighters. They want to wipe us out. It's the AA, or the Arakan army, and Myanmar military's policy," unquote. This stark reality reveals how both the junta and the Arakan army are using our community as pawns for their goals, subjecting them to torture, abuse, and death. The consequences of this violence are dire, fostering a deepening divide and a culture of hatred that threatens the very fabric of our society in Burma, Myanmar. In a tragic twist, 25,000 Rohingya have fled from Mongdo and Buthidaung townships to Bangladesh Cox's Bazar area in the past month. Yet, they now find themselves without essential humanitarian support. Rohingya-led organizations such as ourselves have stepped in, providing emergency funds and food, while no other big humanitarian organizations have stepped in. These efforts, unfortunately, are insufficient to meet overwhelming needs of this vulnerable population, which consist very much of women and children. This violence marks what can only be described as a second wave of genocide against the Rohingya people. It underscores the urgent need for accountability in a country rife with ideological turmoil, where armed groups operate with impunity and civilians continue to bear the brunt of this conflict. Today, we call upon the Canadian government to take decisive actions. Our requests are as follows. 1. Leverage Canada's influence. Use your position to advocate for the National Unity Government to establish a working accountability mechanism that holds both the junta and the armed groups accountable for their crimes and end the culture of impunity. 2nd, end enablers of violence. Hold accountable not just the junta, but also its ASEAN enablers, both the government and private sectors, who continue to facilitate aviation fuel sales to the military used in deadly airstrikes and allow assets of genocide perpetrators to be stored within their national banking systems. 3. Support Rohingya initiatives. Provide direct support to the Rohingya refugee initiatives, particularly those led by women. Expand humanitarian programs beyond Bangladesh to ensure comprehensive aid reaches those in dire need. We implore the international community, especially Canada, to stand with the Rohingya in this time of unimaginable suffering. The world cannot afford to remain silent while atrocities unfold, and there is no future for a democratic Burma, Myanmar without Rohingya in it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. I need to say that I was in Cox's Bazar with the Global Network of Women Peace Builders in 2019. And what I'm hearing today about the 25,000 Rohingya who have gone to Cox's Bazar in just the last month underscores the fact that back in 2019, soon after now Ambassador Bob Rae issued his report to the Canadian government that said, "Tell them we are human," we are now seeing more than 20,000 Rohingya people, many of them women and children, becoming and receiving the least of the least within the camps. I'd now like to welcome Noor Azizi, who has come to us from Australia to give her account. Noor.
Thank you so much. My name is Noor Aziza. I'm a proud Rohingya woman from Arakan, Burma, Myanmar. I was born in 1995, a time when waves of violence ravaged my people in our ancestral homeland. My family, my parents, 2 elder sisters, 2 elder brothers, and I was just a baby. We were forced to flee, driven by the escalating persecution of the Rohingya. My parents knew that staying meant risking their children's lives. There were no opportunities for us to thrive in Burma, Myanmar. Only the certainty that the violence would continue to worsen, which they predicted correctly. The decision to leave behind everything was one born of desperation and love. Their only choice was to protect us. Our journey across Southeast Asia was life-threatening. We walked through dense jungles, boarded any boat that would take us, survived on scraps of food, and relied on the generosity of host communities. We ended up in Sabah, Malaysia. I lived there as a refugee for the first 8.5 years of my life. My family's story echoes the tragic journey of many Rohingya families that are fleeing the genocidal violence in Myanmar. In October 2003, our nightmare ended. The Australian government granted my family asylum. For the first time, we felt safe, I had rights, I was able to be recognized as a person with paper to prove it. Today, I'm the co-founder of the Rohingya Maya Whainur Collaborative Network. As we speak right now, Rohingya fleeing genocide face mounting hostility across the ASEAN region, fueled by misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech that is manifesting into physical violence. In recent months, I have personally visited my Rohingya brothers and sisters in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, witnessing their first-hand anxiety and fear. A boat carrying Rohingya refugees in Aceh was turned away this year. A Rohingya mother fleeing with 2 children told the BBC how one of her children died on starvation on the boat. She had no choice but to bury her child by casting the body to the sea. In Malaysia, over 1,500 Rohingya children are being detained in appalling conditions. These facilities are deeply concerning, and yet they represent just one aspect of the trauma of our people. Recently, there has been an increased movement of Rohingya in Aceh, Indonesia. 75% are women and children fleeing. In March of last year, a boat captain deliberately capsized a vessel carrying 140 Rohingya, killing 67 people. The survivors, many of them women, had already experienced unimaginable horrors in Burma, Myanmar, including gender-based violence and rape at the hands of their captors. I am currently involved in helping 5 Rohingya women with gender-sensitive care who are now dealing with the trauma of childbirth after enduring genocidal rape in Burma and throughout Southeast Asia. Genocidal violence does not stop when fleeing Burma. It continues in Southeast Asia. We call on ASEAN leaders to be held accountable. The principle of non-interference cannot be used as an excuse to ignore the Rohingya genocide. This stance has paralyzed ASEAN from making timely and effective decisions, allowing genocidal violence to persist unchecked. It is time for a shift towards constructive engagement and non-indifference. Immediate, impactful action is needed to address the Rohingya genocide before more lives are lost.
Thank you, Noor, and I think it's important to note that every single one of the accountability mechanisms that were set out by Yasmin and Noor are within the scope of the Canadian federal government. What we lack is the political will to take the kind of action that we were taking 5 years ago, and it's time to change that. I'd now like to invite Sam McGavin of the civil society organization Inter Pares, an expert in this area.